Greetings. Today I wanted to share a little bit of Axiom's philosophy around the user engagement across channels. And I know that we've heard some themes and some specific examples of how that works in bits and pieces and in some sense, in a collective sense. But I'd like to share some thoughts that we have around how this should work. This article came out of The Economist, and it's one that we all kind of live and breathe every day, right? The funnel is dead. Long live the consumer, the consumer decision journey. And I'll try to share some anecdotes as I go through this. I'm especially blessed to have 4 millennial kids. So to make it even more interesting, there's 2 sets of twins. And to make it even more interesting, all 4 of them are either in college or just getting out. And it was kind of an interesting experience watching them come up through junior high and kind of mature along with the devices that matured over the last 10 years. And just to see them sitting around the kitchen table, eating dinner and texting each other and doing their Facebook and their Twitter. My wife used to just get going nuts, trying to get them focused on talking to each other and eating dinner. And it's just a great example of how all of us are these days. Is there isn't a specific funnel. There is a more dynamic approach to the way that we live life. So what's the really hard problem that we have to deal with? I'll use an example. Disney is really trying to be relevant with every guest, everywhere, and every time. My son just recently went to Disney World. He just recently got married. And he went to Disney World with his wife. I think he's still a big kid. And as he was going through there, he was remarking how advanced the technology is that Disney uses for the bracelets they put on you. They're smart bracelets that allow you to wave and buy objects and get into rides. And it was just a good example of how Disney is doing a great job at thinking through how to develop a connection between all the touch points of a consumer as they're going through their experience at the park. There's the marketing, social media, all the way through to at the resorts. And I think that one of the things that is really important to them is to be able to own the moment. So no one really owns the guest, but there's always somebody owning the moment. The Axiom solution is to collect those moments, remembering that we're not marketing to cookies or devices. We're marketing to guests and consumers and customers, and we really want to connect those moments so that we have an overall view of what's happening with that consumer so that we can anticipate how to best interact with them in the future. So the goal is to connect the minutes with a single view of the customer. And that single view of the customer, as someone mentioned earlier today, may occur across as many as 4 devices per individual. And if you have 6 people in the household, that's a lot of devices floating around. And being able to connect those moments across devices is really important in order to know how to anticipate how to interact with that individual on the device. So the problem that we all face, we've heard a little bit about it today, is just the fragmentation that's taking place. The technology in funnel, the customer journey is all over the place. I can see myself at times watching ESPN, being on my iPad, having my iPhone going, and maybe doing something else at the same time. And good luck if you're trying to follow that zigzag path as a marketer and anticipate, first of all, who I am. Am I the same person on all those devices? And how do you interact with me best so that you're not being redundant and you're being relevant? So the fragmentation across the channels and then the fragmented recognition I just mentioned. So I'll start with the fragmented funnel. I'll use the fragmented funnel here just because it's a colloquialism, if you will, for roughly how we transverse the journey. It starts with awareness, consideration, intent, lead, source. We've seen this life cycle for many, many years, for a long time. And Now, the way that we're engaging with it is, it starts with data. In one of the earlier presentations, there was an excellent presentation on marketing using multiple technologies and marketing strategies. And it's very clear that you have to start with the data as a key starting point. So looking at the brand advertising, the direct response advertising, lead gen, content management, and all the way through to conversion, and then the support and loyalty after that. So you've got to have those fundamental pieces of information. And then on the backside, if someone hasn't actually converted, you want to be able to do retargeting to them. Or if they have converted, use email for further consideration, upsell and cross-sell. And then retention and reactivation are another important dimension that often gets overlooked. So here's where our friend the DMP comes into play. Allows us to exchange data and share data across those different dimensions. CRM, I've been using CRM systems since I was much younger, and using it for both loyalty campaigns, prospect marketing, email marketing, and it's a friend that's been around a long time, but it's not necessarily connected to the online world in the way that we might like, at least in a complete way. I know that there are efforts to link CRM and the online space, but the question is, what kind of match rates do you get? How much of your offline population can you actually match to the online world and vice versa? So to simplify this crazy, nonlinear, fragmented customer journey, I put this into a path to purchase that's a little easier on the eyes, it's a little more linear. And the idea here is that at the top of the funnel, we're building awareness. And there may be some click activity, display click activity. Next, there may be some social activity as you start to discuss things with your friends and get ideas and word of mouth. And then email. And as you work your way down the funnel or towards the conversion, you're moving out of this assist mode of gathering of information and moving into the last interaction phase that will dictate whether somebody actually converts or not. And these little numbers here represent assist to conversion ratios. You might have seen them with Google Analytics applications. They kind of give you an idea. A big number means that it's a heavy assist. It's not big on converting. And the further you go down the funnel, the smaller the number gets, representing that there's very little assist occurring to the actual conversion, because that's where the decision takes place. So I'll build off this a little bit as I get into some more detail. The holy grail, of course, is connecting offline and online data. And we want to be able to do that in an intelligent fashion. And we want to be able to get access to all the relevant data stores and sources that are permissible. So these are examples of sources that we've talked about today that are very much important in terms of linking advertising to outcomes. The problem we have with this chart is, 20 years ago, if these sources existed, it'd be relatively easy to tie them together and create a single view of the customer. Today, we have limitations in terms of privacy and compliance and access to data that has to be overcome. So in many cases, there's a need for special opt-in, and I'll talk a little bit more about opt-in as I go further along here. So these fragmented channels have many different complexities and challenges to overcome. So now we have this fragmented recognition. So we have this young lady, Becky. We see her in the email side. We see her with her main address. We see her at work or with her mobile. We see her at her work email address. We have several devices, device 1, 2, and 3, with multiple cookies on each of those devices. And we see online and offline purchases associated with this lady. The question is, does anybody really know who that person is? On any of those devices, quite literally, you could have her husband or boyfriend or other friend using her device and doing shopping. The device ID that you have on this individual may be somebody that is not clearly the same person that lives at 123 Main Street. So the ability to integrate across devices, channels, and purchase domains is really the thing that we're trying to solve. And today, in many cases, we feel like this lady, we feel a little bit blind. We're marketing in one channel. We have a silo that we're just pounding away at, and we're starting to see limited success. And we don't really know what's happening in the other domains that could provide a lot of insight in terms of how we'd react to that person next. So sort of the elephant in the room that we have to deal with is big data. And if you're as tired of hearing that term as I am, maybe somebody will come up with a clever name so we have something else to call it. But big data is really the problem. It's ugly, it's unstructured, it's massive, and it creates some special needs for technology to solve how to use it and create value. The volumes are amazing. Max could probably talk to you all day about the massive volumes that we have at Acxiom that are a special challenge. The variety of data that's coming in from different sources, the structured and unstructured, and then the velocity of change. The data is changing, it's very dynamic. And be able to handle big data with these complexities requires some special smart technology. And some of the technology that we may have been familiar with or used in the past could be, as well as current technology, could be bucketed into this matrix of real time and lag time versus operational and big data. And some of these names of companies will certainly look familiar to you. I've worked with Oracle for many years, and of course Microsoft SQL as well, and IBM. But as you move up into the real-time space, you'll see some companies that you'll be familiar with, like Typico and Streambase and Graph SQL. As you move over into the upper right-hand quadrant, really that's the holy grail. It's big data in a real-time environment requiring special technology in order to be able to do anything with it. And then on the batch processing side in the lower corner with technologies that you may be familiar with that I've used many times, Netezza, Cassandra, and of course Hadoop, which is great for handling big data. So the new technology is really enabling marketers to take this very complex data and do something with it. But the big data really is a solution to that wall. It's really what's going to allow us to connect marketers to consumers in a significant way rather than dribs and drabs here and there. It really offers us the option and the opportunity to do something big and help us get away from this channel centricity. Just if you're working at a large financial services company, retail company, you know what it's like to be in different silos across the organization, and the struggles with getting access to data across channels is immense. So this is the display Loom Escape, and if you have really good eyes, you might be able to see the biggest names in those boxes. But it really starts with the marketer on the left and the publisher and the consumer being on the back end, leading to the actual purchase activity. So there's different Loom Escapes that exist, including search, video, mobile, social, commerce, and gaming. All of these are important. Display Loom Escape is really a big one these days, and being able to transverse that chasm between the marketer and the consumer is what all of us are striving to do and be successful with. So building those relationships with the consumers who are really in charge now. It's less and less us, the marketers, that are in charge with dictating when somebody is going to receive advertising. It is largely the consumers now in control and can respond and reach out and raise their hand in a way that they choose. Reminds me of muddy footprints for my kids. So give the right message at the right time on the right device for the consumer, not for the digital device, not for the cookie, not for the email address, not for the social handle, but for the consumer. So the question is, how do you get to the consumer so that you're not interacting within a silo in a stupid fashion, if you will, because you don't have knowledge about their purchase in another channel, or they're raising their hand and providing intent of what they want, but not being connected in the channel that they want to be. So I'll talk a little bit about the Acxiom AOS and why it's relevant to these challenges and troubles that we all have. It's the Acxiom operating system, as it's called, AOS. It really provides a single view of the customer across channels, devices, and applications. So if you think about those travails that I was talking about a moment ago, where you can't really tell if Becky is really if that Becky in the middle is really the same Becky across all those different devices and all those different addresses. What the AOS is promising to do is create that single view of the customer in a way that hasn't existed in its entirety before. And the beauty here is you can connect the audiences across the data channels and silos. So when I talk about connecting the audiences, what's neat about this is that you can define an audience based on the best targets, the highest value customers, the highest value prospects, those that have certain brand affinities, media consumptions, preferences, propensities for purchase activity. And you can define those targets out of a group of 240 million households, or 140 million households, 260 million adults over the age of 18. And you can define that audience in one place and then cast that audience across all these different channels and devices and truly do a multi-channel marketing campaign in a way that's been so hard to do in the past. And what that really does is it opens up the doors for our strategists. When I say our, I mean the colloquial our. It's all of you that work in marketing. It opens up the doors for you to really get creative about how you develop marketing strategies in a way that's been difficult to do in the past. So the AOS environment is designed to be an environment that allows marketers, partners, and other key relationships to be able to leverage this technology and run their own campaigns, run their own business, do their own results analysis, look at doing testing, measurement, and look for ways to optimize marketing. And what I love about Odometry is they have built a very sophisticated acquisition, or I should say, attribution capability across all channels that really allows you to start to understand as you get into this unknown world that we're moving into. It gives you the ability to start using fact-based quantitative methods to dial in your marketing spend as well as your targeting so that you can be more effective in future campaigns. So it gives you the ability to create this closed-loop process that allows you to test and continue to optimize and squeeze costs and waste out and increase your revenue by using more intelligent attribution analytics. So some principles of engagement that are now really possible as a result of having, for all of us to have this ability to centralize data in a way that hasn't been possible before. It starts with a few engagement principles. And that's recognizing the customers outside your company. It's the ability to create an analytic environment where you can bring customer data, multi-channel data, propensity data, all different types of data together in one place so that you can more effectively recognize the consumers that you're reaching out to and anticipate what kind of brand, what kind of products, what kind of preferences that they might have. The second principle is recognizing customers inside your company. So I worked for AT&T for many years, about a decade back in the 90s. And it was an amazing company. It was huge. They had 20 business units. Each of them was a Fortune 500 company. And I did consulting with all of them, or maybe half of them. But it was such a frustration trying to integrate data across these different silos, because there was Steve Briley in all those, many of those 20 silos. Steve Briley was in each of those silos. But in the effort to bring that data together, and Robert's laughing at me because he probably deals with this every day, but when you're trying to bring this data together into one place so that you have an understanding of who is Steve Briley, the person that has a wireless phone, what other products does he have, what are the things that he needs most in his life, what are his favorite brands, what kind of media does he want to consume and not consume, and the ability to bring this data together and understand the customers inside your company really can open things up in a way that you can only hope for. Be a good listener. This could be social media, it could be word of mouth, but what I'm thinking about here is, it's one thing to be able to understand your customers if they're buying your products and they're engaging with your customer emails and they're engaged with blogs. But it's another to really understand a consumer that's not your customer yet. How do you know how to best approach them? Or do you just throw spaghetti against the wall and hope those help people self-select into your programs? To the extent that you can become a good listener and you can use data across channels, across devices, and link that together in an intelligent fashion, so that you know that Rebecca is the same woman in each of those little boxes, that puts you in a place to develop a good understanding of product preferences, media usage habits, social engagement style, ability to really understand loyalty to certain products, as well as ascertain propensities for purchase of different products. So now the things that we kind of talk about for a long time now become a reality because it's possible to do this. So dress for success. This might be called little data, if you will. It's understanding the little things that you already know about a consumer and being able to personalize a web page or have personalized emails for your customers. But the other thing that it means is to be able to have that collective knowledge about a consumer across channel, I should say a prospect, if you will, across all these channels and devices, and be able to resolve them to one person. And then be able to understand, using propensity scores and segments, be able to understand kind of where they are in life. What's their life cycle? Where are they in the life cycle? What do they like? Do they like to drive Chevys or Toyotas or BMWs? What kind of brands do they really coalesce around? And if you have this data in the manner that I'm suggesting, you're now in a position to engage with an anonymous consumer online, not as an anonymous consumer, but with a great deal of knowledge about them that's still anonymous. Another principle is to interact with your customers' friends. One of the capabilities I'll touch on in a minute is a pretty cool Social Connect capability that allows prospects to opt in their email or their other sources of identification and identify friends that they want to receive a coupon or they want to target for a special offer. So this idea of a network analytics or a social network marketing environment is something that is, I'll show an example of the success you can have with that by building it up over time. Engagement principle number 6, always be appropriate. If you'd called Rebecca Rob, you'd probably lose her before, because she's on her husband's iPad, you would lose her before she even bought anything. So always be appropriate and use the information that's coming from these collective sources to intelligently tie it together and recognize who the consumer is, not who the cookie is. So going back to the funnel, the truth is that the funnel has become defunct, if you will. I've been using the marketing funnel for many years, and there's some of you in the room here that I've worked with in the past, either as a colleague or a customer. And the marketing funnel is always a good way for me to describe and build marketing mix optimization solutions. It worked great for years, but I would say that as we heard so well from earlier today, life's become more complicated. And just using a top-down approach to understanding media attribution and optimizing media spend really needs to be complemented very carefully with a bottoms-up digital attribution strategy in the way that Paul was describing. So life's gotten more complicated. I think it's gotten a lot more interesting. And there's so many things that we don't know yet about how to use these capabilities to accomplish what we need to do, but the future's bright. So I'll just stop here, or stop with this particular topic. There really is no funnel. There's this crazy consumer journey that we're all on, and we just need to understand how to pull that data together so we can understand it. So if there were 10 commandments for marketing, number 1 would be know thy customer. The waste that exists in not only mass media, but also in digital media is amazing. There is so much waste that occurs because we are not collecting data points from multiple channels and saying this person already bought. Instead, we're retargeting them over and over and over again and wasting a lot of resources that could be applied to more profitable fields, if you will. So what does the funnel look like? We might consider and evaluate and then buy. In other cases, we'll consider, talk to some friends, or we may have loyalty to a particular product and we'll just buy. But there's this cycle that takes place that is taking us to new places that we haven't seen before. So what is the value of being able to tie data together across all of these different channels and devices and applications? Well, it means that we're not losing Rebecca before we can give her the offer of what she really wants, because we've recognized Rebecca as Rebecca, and so now we've created greater customer value because she's made a purchase from us because we delivered the right message to the right person, knowing who that person was, and enabling her to extend her relationship with your company even more. So connecting across channel consumer interactions, it could start with touch points, such as outlined here, along with the identify and collect capabilities, and then finally with the conversion. What's cool about this is the one-way ashes. The one-way ash ID that enables the linkage about all these touch points all the way through to the conversion process. So now you're able, using this ash ID, which is a consumer level identifier that's tying together your emails, all these cookies, all the devices, and putting them into an environment that allows you to make the right offer at the right time because you know who the heck it is. So I'll go back to this permission-based marketing that I was discussing a little bit. And one of the products that's been added to the AOS environment is the Social Connect, and it allows us to create an opt-in data collection process. So a brand runs a campaign with social, enabling sharing. A consumer signs in via social sign-in. Action grants brand and or Acxiom permission to access the consumer data, and PII for linking. So all the data that's inside of this environment that I'm talking about is now pasted against the consumer links. And then it gets moved into the recognition phase where the idea is linked to all this offline Acxiom data, and Acxiom has an amazing offline repertoire of data. Without going into too much detail, we have about 1,600 data elements in InfoBase, which you probably may know something about that. And then we have another 4,500 audience propensities that tell you something about brand loyalty, media usage, product preferences, and product propensities. So you've got a total of like 6,000 data elements on every adult 18 plus in the United States. And that's kind of the backbone for how we use this AOS Social Connect to light up who that actual consumer is that has signed in. So, you know, one example of this is it really allows you to start to dial in, identify who your super consumers are, the ones that are creating the most value. And I'm not sure which brand this is here. I think it might be Loreal. That you can identify who the big influencers are. So now you can identify your audience in a very specific fashion instead of being cookie 101. This is women 25 to 44 who have referred 2 or more friends, and they like L'Oreal, Redken, and CoverGirl. So with that knowledge, you're now in a position for defining an audience for a prospect marketplace that is huge, and be able to customize and speak to in a personalized fashion for future marketing campaigns. So L'Oreal is one of our great clients, and they gave us permission to share this. In just a 1-week campaign that we did with them, and just a little background on L'Oreal, you know, they're a CPG company, right? A lot of their products are sold in grocery stores and department stores. They don't have as big of a customer database as they would like. I mean, it's like people that buy toothpaste. We all buy toothpaste, but they don't really know who bought what brand of toothpaste on what day and how much you bought or how often you buy it. But with this social opt-in, you're now in a position to really quantify what's going on. So in just a 1-week campaign, 200,000 plus social opt-ins. It amazes me how my kids will just automatically use Facebook or Twitter just to do an opt-in for whenever they're engaging in this kind of thing. They just freely opt into these things, especially the girls. 60,000 plus social shares and 150,000 coupons were downloaded. So now you know something about the price elasticity of your consumers. You know something about the purchase activity of the consumers, and it allows you to develop new analytical algorithms and model scores and segmentation schemes that in the past would have been impossible. So that's just a brief summary of AOS and Acxiom's vision and view of the marketing world these days. And we like to think that all train tracks lead to Acxiom, and I'll just leave it at that. Any questions?
Steve Briley. Hi, Eric Jones with Jellyfish Digital out of Baltimore. On the L'Oreal example, how, I guess the question would be, what did they do with it after the coupon? Right. So were they able to connect it to offline data? I mean, I imagine through the coupon, yes, but the second purchase or the third purchase, what was the next step for them, or what is the next step? You may not be there yet.
That's a great question, and you're on the right path. What this Social Connect solution that we've added to AOS, and we just brought this capability into the AOS platform within the last 2 months, maybe. And so we're in the early stages of building these databases for specific CPG clients and others that are interested. And the natural next step is to build up the volume of those social connects. And now this gives them the ability to actually build a quote-unquote CRM database of actual customers that they can market to and remarket to in a way that we're all familiar with doing. So they haven't really gotten to that step yet, but that's coming.
Just hang out for the microphone.
Doug Wolf from Facebook.
Hi.
How do you manage, how do you maintain the anonymity of the PII when your data plus my data could tell you who that person is?
Yeah, I'll take a crack at that. We have this safe haven environment that allows us to bring in PII information from multiple sources, including advertisers and potentially publishers, but also from third-party sources. And using cookie matching technology is one example. We have, keep me honest here, Max, but I believe that Acxiom has one of the largest cookie pools in the world today. And if I'm overreaching there, you know, I'll correct myself later. But what that allows us to do is, because we have this cookie matching capability, is that we can link individuals coming in from multiple sources inside of this safe haven using cookies, and then match that back to Infobase, where we have, 260 million consumers with lots of information on them. And of course, you could do the same thing with first-party data if it was a customer application. So it's the one-way hash is really the key, and the second corollary to that is we use a personalized one-way hash. That means that if Steve Briley has an Abilitech ID that's anonymous, but you need to share my Abilitech ID with 10 different customers or sources. Each one of these sources gets a unique, it's called a PEL. It's a private and encryption link, and so there's no sharing possible across sources of data either. So Acxiom has really built a fortress around this data that allows us to imbue that data with intelligence for marketing, but it remains completely anonymous to us and others as well.
Steve Briley, ladies and gentlemen.
Thank you.